What's up, my pickles and picklets? It's Spontaneously Pickled here, and today we are going over the Raw episode for October 9th, 2023. Now, first of all, Raw starts off with Seth Rollins coming out, celebrating his victory, but then Drew McIntyre comes out and interrupts him. Seth asks Drew, pretty much if he wants a title match. McIntyre tells him he does, but isn't going to come from behind and jump him. He's just going to come to his face. Because he wants him at 100% and proposes that they fight at Crown Jewel. Seth then asks the crowd if they would like to see that match, and they all cheer, saying that they want the match. Seth Rollins then mentions that the party isn't over, and immediately indirectly kind of notes that Drew being in 3MB back in the day, saying that, hey, I know you used to be a part of the band. You want to come over and join the crowd and serenade me? McIntyre says no, and he walks away. Priest then attacks Rollins from behind, and then looks at Drew as Drew is walking on the aisle as always. And then Drew doesn't do anything, but then Dom comes out with the briefcase. So then Drew hits Dom with the Glasgow kiss. Ivar stops with the big boot to Kingston, but then gets tossed out the ring by Kingston. Kofi then jumps onto Ivar from the outside. Ivar then slams Kofi into the Shield. Kofi then goes after Ivar after setting up a table, but then Ivar tosses him onto the apron and does like a splash onto Kofi onto the apron. Kofi tosses Ivar off the apron and does a splash of his own to Ivar for 2. Kofi then grabs the Viking flag and chokes Ivar as they're both on the top rope. And then I'm not sure who had the upper hand on this one. Sorry, my eye itches. I'm not sure who has the upper hand on this one, but they both fell back. I think Kofi went for Russian leg sweep, I'm assuming. Anyway, Kofi tosses Ivar over into the shields again, breaking one of them, and he lands an SOS for a 2 count. Kofi and Ivar get into a sequence of reverses of underhook, but then finally Ivar finally lands an underhook powerbomb. Ivar then preps Kofi up, preps to jump on Kofi from the top rope, but then Kofi gets up and grabs Ivar's beard action, tosses him into a table on the outside. Out of nowhere, Valhalla comes and then jumps Kofi Kingston, and then Xavier Woods comes running out, asking the ref to pretty much get rid of her. She then runs after Xavier Woods, but then Xavier Woods ducks, so Valhalla jumps, falls over the barricade. And then Ivar then does a crossbody on a relaxing Xavier, thinking oh, I'm smart. He's like, oh, I'm cunning, but then Ivar lands on him with the crossbody. Kofi then does a roundhouse kick to Ivar, and then tries to do the Tumble at Paradise, but then Ivar catches him and tosses him onto the table. Ivar then lands a moonsault to Kofi for the win. Next up, we have Brian Saxton interviewing Shinsuke. He asked a bunch of questions, and Shinsuke just doesn't answer, but out of nowhere, Ricochet comes out and attacks him. And that was kind of the end of the segment, pretty much. Afterwards, we have a segment with Damian Priest and JD McDonough, where Priest has JD on a wall, choke him, and then Finn and the rest of the Judgment Day come in and stop him. Finn tells JD to be quiet because JD was trying to talk, but then Priest asked Finn where was he at. Finn and Rhea then mentioned that they were in the Adam Pearce's office arranging for a rematch for next week at Raw, and that Priest shouldn't really be so upset because at least he still has the Money in the Bank contract. Rhea then tells JD McDonough to handle Drew tonight. Priest then mentions that he wants JD to handle Drew, but then he wants to break him himself before Drew does, which he's right, I believe. They then kick JD out of the locker room. Next up, we have Raquel Rodriguez versus Nia Jax. Nia Jax immediately takes over the match, slamming Raquel into the mat. Raquel then retaliates and attacks Nia onto the turnbuckle, but then with a bunch of soda blocks. Raquel then tries to slam Nia, but then Nia is too heavy, but also hits some elbows onto her. So I'm not sure which one really was there. It seems like maybe both came to play there. She then tosses Raquel into the ring post and then tosses Raquel into the barricade. Nia then does a slide slam onto Raquel, then does an elbow drop onto her. Raquel then lands a bunch of clotheslines, but not knocking Rhea down, and then finally lands a big boot, finally knocking her down. Raquel then tries to pick Nia up, but then this time her back gives out. Nia then lands a Samoan drop and then goes for the Annihilator, but then Raquel gets up and powerbombs her for the turnbuckle. Rhea then comes running out and tosses Raquel out of the ring, and then attacks Rhea Ripley, comes running out. But then Raquel comes back into the ring and attacks Rhea, and then does with the clothesline, but then she's quickly disposed of by Rhea with the headbutt. Shayna Baszler then comes out and attacks Nia, and then Rhea pulls her off. Rhea kind of rhymes, isn't it? They argue for a bit, and then Rhea tries to walk off. I don't know if she's going at the Nia Jax or something, but apparently Nia Jax escaped. And then from behind, Baszler lands a German suplex, and then they're running Nia to Rhea while Nia escapes, which she wasn't trying to protect Nia, obviously. Now that segment was good. Unfortunate match. Yes, Raquel did look like she had potential in the match. Obviously, we know she's strong, but she didn't look strong in the match. Right now they're playing a lot, obviously, and it makes sense because obviously I'm guessing Nia Jax is considered a super heavyweight for the women's division. But my goodness, like I do feel like they're really making a lot of the other women look weak. However, Shayna Baszler in this particular segment came out looking the strongest, with Rhea looking the second strongest. But unfortunately, Raquel didn't look too strong in the segment because she was getting beat up pretty much. Obviously, she was going to probably lose to Nia, and she was kind of easy to dispose of by Rhea Ripley. So yeah, it was kind of like So I really hope they just be a little bit more careful about how strong they try to portray Nia Jax. But it was really good to see Shayna come back and looking strong. Then we have Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins backstage. Seth confirms that the match is now confirmed, but then he didn't ask him what happened earlier. McIntyre mentioned that he isn't getting involved in things that are his business, pretty much. And pretty much, I forgot what happened after that, so I could probably have to note it. Next up, we have Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes to arrive. Nothing big happened there, but I am loving seeing Jay's energy. I almost thought he was still drunk from the night before, but apparently he wasn't. After that, I believe it was Jackie Redmond. I sometimes forget their names of the interviews backstage, but she interviewed Shayna. She asked what's going on with all the people, pretty much like everybody in the ring and everything, like all the scuffling. Shayna mentioned that she doesn't care who it is. If she's in the ring, she's the baddest woman in there, which I really liked. And then she walked off, and then she walked past Cesaro, who he was like, oh, so he was creeped out as always. Next up, we have a Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes segment with Michael Cole in the ring. Actually, Cole asked them how it feels to be champions, and then Jay mentions that they're turned up. And I'm like I said before, I love the energy that he has. It really reminds me of the conference. He's almost like I said, I almost swore he was still drunk. Cole then asked the hard-hitting questions, asking if this changes Cody Rhodes' story, and asked if he no longer believes that he can actually do it because he fell before, and then like if he's content with these titles. Cody then mentions that he didn't really answer. He just mentions that he's excited like everyone else is to be the undisputed tag team champions, kind of avoiding the drama out of the question. But then Cole comes back with the same question, but then this time he mentions that is it because he came close to winning just like his dad did? And then ask if that's going to be his story as well, just like his father's. Now, this question, you can tell, really hit Cody hard. Cody, I think, is also a great actor, I can see. But, you can see Cody stop for a minute, and, he was, almost crying. So I was like, I don't blame him. That must have hit a sore spot. But it was a good question from Cole. It was definitely a hard-hitting question. I guess journalism, right? But then before Cody could actually say anything further, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens came out. Zayn mentions how he and Owens beat Jimmy and Jay for the titles at WrestleMania. He credits them both for winning the titles against the Judgment Day because it was a hard task to do, of course, with all that, how the Judgment Day is. But then and he's happy for them. But then he mentions that he also has mixed emotions as he feels they should be having it themselves, him and Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens just comes in and mentions that there are no mixed feelings with him, and he wants the titles back and asks for a match with them tonight, and mentions that they will probably reject because Jey Uso can't handle the thought of losing these titles just again to Sami and him tonight, which it doesn't make sense that he did lose in the past to them. Cody then mentions that he thinks that they're all friends, so let's calm down essentially, but he does accept the challenge and they can do it tonight like they wanted. Next up, we have the Alpha Academy. Gable is taking chops from Otis and then mentions that he's going to win the #1 contender match for the IC title tonight. Bronson Reed then comes in and says that Gable is getting his hopes up again and mentions that he beat them both, like him and Otis, and he'll be winning the match tonight, and tells Gable to tell his daughter not to watch tonight because it's going to be another heartbreaking loss for her dad. Next up, we had the Ricochet, a triple threat match basically between Ricochet, Bronson Reed, and Chad Gable for the #1 contender for the Intercontinental Championship match. Now, Ricochet's music hits, but then he's immediately downed by Nakamura, and Shinsuke's about to do the Kinshasa, but then security stopped them. Then, eventually they break him up. He goes to the ring. Bronson immediately goes at the match starts, and then obviously Bronson and before the match starts, they come out. Then in the match, Bronson immediately goes for Ricochet, but then Ricochet and Chad go after Bronson Reed. Bronson overpowers them both, but then Gable tries to land like a Chaos Theory on Reed, but then he's too heavy. And then he lifts Gable for a suplex, but Ricochet then makes a save with a spinning kick. They both try to Irish rope Reed, but then instead he tosses them both outside of the ring. He then tries to do a splash from the apron, but then Ricochet lands a kick on Reed. Gable then grabs Ricochet, and then they have a little struggle, and then Gable actually lands a full Nelson suplex onto Bronson Reed with Ricochet, which is really cool. Ricochet tries to run into Reed, but then Reed tosses him into Gable, and then splashes them both into a turnbuckle, and then there's a double Samoan drop on both of them. With Ricochet getting out at a 2 count from a pin. Ricochet does his springboard elbow, but his outside kick, and then he drops kick Reed on the ring. He then goes for a dive, but then Gable catches him, and then he tries to pin him and kick, but he kicks out. Gable tries to go for the Razor's Edge, like a Razor's Edge move, but then Ricochet reverses for Hurricanrana, and then does a double crossbody, and then does a shooting star for a 2. Ricochet then lands a kick on Reed and Gable, and then a German suplex on him for that. Ricochet then runs at Gable, but then he ducks, and then Ricochet jumps over Gable, landing a dive onto Reed. Gable then catches Ricochet for an ankle lock, but then Ricochet gets out and then lands a running knee and was going to do like I think the 450 splash onto Gable, but then Gable ran up to the turnbuckle and did a German suplex, but then Ricochet landed on his feet, but then his knees like he had like a little bit of a bad landing. Gable then landed the Chaos Theory onto Ricochet, but then Reed came up and lifted lifted Ricochet right out of the pin, and then tossed him into Gable, and then landed a running senton onto both of them. And then after that, he did the tsunami on Ricochet for the win. Next up, we have Jackie Redmond interviewing Becky. She asked how Becky is doing since she wasn't 100%, wasn't able to compete last week, and can she now? Becky mentions that she's ready despite having stitches, but it will be Tegan Knox's opportunity as she's going to be a wounded bear in a fight, but she will fight like hell. Xia Li then comes out, and like it's good to see her, by the way. Then she mentions that her and Becky should have a match soon, and Becky mentions that she's not a hard woman to find, and Xia Li mentions that she will find her. Next up, we have Drew versus JD McDonough. Now, JD McDonough tries to chop McIntyre, but it doesn't phase him at all, and if anything, it just pisses him off. McIntyre then lands like a sky-high back body drop, and then the belly suplex on JD. Drew then peps to do the Claymore to JD, but then Dom distracts him. JD finally gets some offense, catching distracted Drew and attacks his legs, focusing on legs, finally gaining some control of the match. But not for long, as Drew clotheslines him flat. But when going back to the ring, Dominic does drive Drew into the turnbuckle, like into the, is this a turnbuckle or the ring post, pardon me. And then he kicks Drew, and then JD comes in and kicks Drew and does a moonsault onto him. He then goes for a pin, but then Drew kicks out at an immediate one. And then they come place to the ref, so Dom grabs McIntyre he kicks Dom onto the table, and then he lands a future sock DDT on JD, and then there's a countdown Claymore for the win. Then we have a small segment again with Priest and Rhea. Priest watches in disappointment, and I don't know what he said, something, but then Rhea mentions that she has an ideal and to trust him before he does anything. So I'm guessing maybe he wants to just beat up JD himself, I'm not sure. Next up, Wade Barrett interviews DIY. He asks them what happened with last week mean, like basically about together. They mentioned that DIY has always been bigger than them, and like the fans kind of created this movement. Gargano said that he was in San Jose and would not let Ciampa get jumped, but before they could confirm that DIY is going to be together, Imperial comes in and jumps them both. Next up, they do like a Tegan Knox promo talking about her torn ACL and like, you know, how she's had bad luck now, but now she's here, so that's really cool. Then we have a Jackie Redmond segment interviewing Tegan Knox, of course. She asks Tegan Knox how she's been preparing for tonight. Tegan mentions that she's been waiting for this moment and will bring her best. Natalya then comes out, of course, and says she's proud of Tegan and reminds her to show Becky what she's made of. Next up, we have Ricochet backstage. Ricochet goes on looking for Shinsuke, but then Adam Pearce mentioned that he asked Shinsuke to leave, but they grant the Falls Count Anywhere match for them next week. I also noticed backstage that Rhea Ripley was talking to Drew behind them, so I don't think that's a simple coincidence. You know, these kind of things don't just happen by coincidence. I don't think they were just hanging out backstage out of boredom or something, you know? Next up, we have Tegan Knox versus Becky Lynch. Becky seemed a bit different when she was coming out tonight, like a lower energy. I don't know. So I wondered if there's some sign of if there was some kind of sign of a loss or something else going on. I'm not sure. But she did seem a little low energy tonight. Am I the only one that realized that? But anyway, after an early attempt for the Chinese wizard from Tegan, Becky steps out of the way and they get into like an extended roll spot where Becky almost lands the manhandle slam, but then Tegan pushes her off. Tegan finally lands a shoulder block and shows some confidence gesturing at the title around her waist. She was like doing that little thing that they do a lot of times with the title. But then Becky also lands a shoulder block of her own and shows some attitude in return, wiggling like a loose hair. I guess one of their hairs. I don't know who it was because Tegan also has multicolors. One of which that matches Becky's, but I do think it's Becky's. And then she tossed it out. Becky then shows some frustration and then she hit Tegan's head on all 4 turnbuckles. Tegan then blocks a springboard kick and then kicks Lynch's injured arm and then returns the head to turnbuckle fake, but only doing it twice though. Becky then tries to go for a running move, but then Tegan hangs her from the arm onto the ropes and then goes to tightrope, but then Lynch kicks her down and then does a baseball slide onto Tegan, but then she does miss a jump, landing on the arm on the barricade. Tegan then lands a kick and a rolling senton on Becky for a 2. Becky Lynch then lands a Beck-Exploder slam for a 2 count. Beck-Exploder, pardon me, because they call it Manhustle the finisher. Tegan then lands a standing crossbody on Becky for a 2. Tegan then goes for a kick, but then gets rolled up for a 2. But then Becky tries to go for this arm, but then Tegan drives Becky into a turnbuckle. Tegan then catches Becky with a kick and then climbs the turnbuckle, but then Becky comes up with her. They fight, and then Tegan slips through and then kicks Becky on the turnbuckle, and then does like a splash on her for a 2 count. She then uses Becky's own arm on her, but then Becky gets her out with a roll-up. Tegan then lands a beautiful quick flow-away slam out of nowhere for a 2 count. Becky then goes for another manhandle slam, but then gets rolled up. She then goes for this armor, but then get rolled up again. But then Becky lands another armor for the win. Becky then goes to handshake Tegan, and then Tegan handshakes her back, and there's a little fist bump, showing some lovely sportsmanship. Next up, we have a small segment with Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. They're basically just checking the status of DIY, and Pierce pretty much says he'll update them, but then Rhea comes in and kicks him out. Pierce then says that what else can he do for it? As apparently she had a few requests. Ripley then mentions that she needs to carry the division in order and wants to have a one-on-one with Shayna Baszler next week, so I'm looking forward to that match. I hope it's not a squash. Next up, we have another segment with Tegan Knox, Natalya, and Katana Chance, and Kaden Carter segment. Tegan shows disappointment and about losing, and says she tried her best, but then she still lost. But they all motivated, saying like, "Hey, you tried your best." But then all of a sudden, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven came out. Green mentions that they're having a pity party and tells Natty to never interfere with her again, or else. Natty says, "Or else what?" And then Chelsea's like, "Oh," and I think she was waiting for Niven to say something. And she does finally come in and says, "Or else you have to deal with me." And then her and Natty look at each other, have a little thing, and then they say, they challenge each other for a match next week. So I'm also looking forward for that. I do believe Niven's gonna win, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see. You never be surprised. Next up, we have a small segment with Jey Uso and McIntyre backstage. Drew says Jey will soon show his true colors, and then when he does, he's gonna want to put him down. Jey says, "Hey, I got 5 minutes. We can do this right here." Then Sami Zayn comes out and says, "Calm down," pretty much calms down and stuff the special potential fight. Jey then plays I think they call it the fourth wall or fourth barrier, I forget what they call it, and says that, "Where did you come from?" Because a lot of times the superstars are always right there, literally just right there, waiting to come out. So that was really funny. He then tells Zayn that he appreciates him, having his back and everything, but tonight it's on Uso. Zayn does mention not to worry, he's ready. Then before the match, we had a small Ludwig Kaiser promo, which was interesting. I wonder if they have a push from the store. I don't know, but it was interesting to see. Or maybe he's trying to swoon up what's her name for the Alpha Academy? Oh my god, my brain is not working. Oh my god, that's what I'm talking about though. I cannot believe I can't remember her name, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna have to put it in the edit. Cause my brain is really not working. Sorry guys. One of those days, to be honest with you. So yeah, if I not focus as much as I should be today, to be honest. Anyway, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes for the undisputed tag team titles. Cody and Zayn started off slow and calm, and then Zayn eventually did a stiff chop to Cody, and then Cody returned that, making the match a little bit more officially heating up. When Jey tagged in, he and Zayn told a little bit of an interesting story in some ways, and then it landed some more stiff shots. Zayn then tagged an unbiased Owens, who shoved Jay's face, and they got into a fighting scuffle, which needed to be broken up. But then Rhodes and Zayn tried to break it up, and then Zayn shoved Rhodes, and then they all got into it. Things got a bit crazy, and everyone started fighting hard on the outside. KO then jumps in onto Jay on the announcements table, and then Zayn and Cody break out fighting around it too. Owen tries to climb the top rope, but then Jay kicks him, but he's unfazed, and then he just grabs Jay. He just grabs Jay by the hair and drags him up, and then he punches him down after the scuffle, and then he does a swanton on Jay for it too. Owen then goes for a pop-up powerbomb, but then Jay jumps over, and then he lands a super kick, and they exchange super kicks with Jay actually landing 2, but then KO clotheslining him, with both then going down. Owens then tries to stop Jay from tagging Cody, but then Jay lands a super kick on Owens, and then he tags in Cody, and then Zayn also gets tagged in for the hot tag. So they both have a hot tag. Both of them start going in for the little fight, both of them feel energized, but Cody gets in, gets the upper hand on that, doing a Cody cutter for the 2 count. Cody then went in for the crossroads, but then Zayn blocked it, and then he tried to do the Blue Thunder Bomb, but then Cody blocked it for another crossroad attempt, but then Sami reverses that yet again, and then does the Blue Thunder Bomb for 2. Sami then lands his explosive suplex on Rhodes and prepares it for the Haluva kick, but then gets caught with the crossroads, but then Owens breaks that up for the pin, breaks up the pin. After the exchange of punches, Cody tried to hook Sami, but then Sami lands a back body drop and then tags in Kevin Owens, and then Cody tags in Jay. Owen tries for a stunner, but then Jay reverses it, and they both once again land the super kicks on each other, with Jay landing 1 finally for the 2. Jay then tries a top rope move, but then Owen moves out of the way, and then he lands a stunner, which Cody then breaks up the pin. They then roll out, Cody and Jay kind of roll out together, and then Zayn runs out, does a running dive onto both of them. Owens then tosses Jay back in, aiming for a swanton, but then Jay gets his knees up, and then he lands a super kick on Owens, and then he does one on Zayn as well, and then Rhodes does a crossroad to Zayn, Cody and Jay and Cody then do a double super kick onto Owen, and then they land that finisher, what seems to be called I think the Cody 1D, unless Cole was like saying mistaken, I'm not sure. But they then did that for the win. Cody and Jay go in for handshakes with Zayn, but then Zayn was a bit hesitant, but he did do it. But then we do notice that KO was outside the ring, and then he tells him to come in. He takes a moment to come in, then he finally does. He shakes Cody's hand rather quickly, but then Jay took a few moments, and then he shook their hand. So in the end, like this Raw had like a good feel-good moment at the end to end the Raw. So that was a really good way to go. This Raw did have a lot of highlights. I was actually kind of surprised. That does, because I actually didn't expect to have like a lot of moments where it was like, okay, this, that not happen. But there was a lot of moments that I covered because, as you guys know, I'm trying to do more of abbreviated, like run reviews and highlights for Raw and SmackDown, especially Raw, because Raw can be very long to do. And actually, like a lot of times, it's like during when I'm retired when it comes on, so I'm kind of like, oh, what do I gotta do? Like my eyes cut to close, so it's kind of like, but I did manage, and yeah, this Raw. It had a lot of segments, I gotta say. The matches weren't long, but then the matches did come off good in my honest opinion. The only match that you particularly hated was the one with Nia Jax and Raquel Rodriguez, obviously, because I just felt like, they just, I don't know, I'm not really feeling I kind of try to make Nia Jax look so over dominant. I understand making dominance, but you don't have, like I said, if you want to show somebody dominant when they first come, I always think it's better against local talent, so there's no like real loss to like the main roster. Because right now, like, if Nia Jax squashed like Raquel, right, and then she loses to Ripley, you're gonna think, okay, so who could be Ripley? Because you also got to keep in mind the people that Ripley legitimately squashed. So I look at those things when I look at these matches. I also really like the Cody and the Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens match. I thought that match was really, really good. That match I really thoroughly enjoyed, and it really told a good story. I do think that I do hope that they don't have a rivalry, but I don't know, because I felt like Sami Zayn and KO was showing a little bit more heel style, specifically KO especially. There was even a point where he was doing this, like the thing that like people do for Jay. I don't know, for some reason, like I said, this camera doesn't really always catch my left and right hand going up at the same time. But like, you know how Jay does that thing, and basically KO was like that, and then he did like the kind of like the suck it sign. So it was kind of weird, but it's a passionate fight, so I understand. I see that there were no hard feelings. Anyway, that does conclude my review for the Raw of October 9th, 2023. So with that being said, guys, if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, or even share. And for now, I'm going to end this video, so Spontaneously Pickled is going to be out of here. I will see you guys soon for the next video. Either it's going to be a horror game or another game or wrestling. I don't even know. We'll see how my week goes. Anyway, take care, guys.